Okay. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the, I believe, April 25th meeting of the Planning Board. All present except Anne, who has a illness in the family. So welcome. And I'm looking for a motion to approve the meeting minutes of the February 21st meeting.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Abstain? Opposed? It's approved. We have no minor change approvals, so let's get right into the agenda. The first item is a public hearing, which is reapproval due to a missed deadline of the Cumberland Foreside Village subdivision amendment approved on November 15th, 2022 for a 350-foot extension of Sky Drew Drive and to split an existing lot into two lots. Task Assessor Map R01, Lot 11-7. The applicant owner is Peter Kennedy, Heritage Village Development Group, LLC, and our representative tonight is William Savage, PE of Acorn Engineering. Carla?
Yes, I don't know if William wants to speak to this or not, but
Can the microphone? Oh.
William, did you want to speak to this? Or is William here? Okay, just give an overview of what happened and.
My name's actually Andrew.
You need to go to
Can
the
you-
podium. You need to be like me and speak into your microphone.
Hello, my name's Andrew Godfrey, actually. I'm stepping
sorry.
in for Will tonight. So apologies for the error in us. We didn't get the plans to the registry in time for the deadline, the last approval. So just looking for the reapproval. We've gotten the approval for the site law amendment with the DEP has been approved. So that's the only change that's happened since the last time. There's just been a few minor edits to the plans for that approval. So, thank you.
So any questions from the board?
Peter, I just got a question, a point of order. I wasn't on the board in November. Am I free to reaffirm if I?
That's a good question. Carla?
My gut
I
feeling is
followed it,
no.
but-
Are the rest of you all, were you all here?
Yeah, I would say probably no.
Yeah, if the rest of you are all here, I think we'd
Yeah.
be on the safe side.
Yeah.
Let's not do it.
Okay,
Good question.
good question. Thank you, George.
Peter?
Yes.
Carly, so we are simply, this is almost like we're going back in time, except it's forward in time in terms of deadlines moving forward.
Correct.
There are no changes. It is what we approved of.
Yeah.
Are we even going to have to re-sign the Mylars, or are we just going
Um,
forward with the Mylars?
We are just because of the dates and such that they're there. But no, everything, I think I proposed a sample motion, which for this.
So
one, the
do
next-
we have to, so for the most part, we can just, we don't have to go through findings of facts or all this stuff. Do we have to do
No, I had proposed a
Yeah, the memo
motion
was-
that says move to reapprove state the name of the project with the same findings of fact and conditions of
Oh,
approval.
great. So,
Yeah.
thank
I
you.
have it as
Okay.
well.
Richard, and
I'll move to reapprove.
put that down.
Right words. Move to reapprove the Cumberland Foreside Village subdivision amendment originally approved on November 15th, 2022 for a 350-foot extension of Skyview Drive and to split an existing lot into two lots. Do I need to read all of it? Tax Assessor Map R01, Lot 11-7, applicant owner Peter Kennedy, Heritage Village Development Group LLC, Representative Andrew Godfrey of Acorn Engineering, with the same findings of fact and conditions of approval as contained in the original approval.
I forgot that we do need to have a public hearing. Is there anybody from the public that wishes to opine on this? Hearing none, I will close the public hearing. We have a motion. Do I hear a second?
A second?
Okay, further discussion? All in favor? Opposed?
One abstention.
One abstention. It's approved. Item number 2, reapproval due to missed deadline of a final major subdivision plan for White Rock Terrace, a 4-story, 55-unit senior affordable apartment building with a 13,500-foot building footprint to be located off Sky Drew Drive on a 4.5-acre portion of the lot shown on tax assessor map R01, lot 11-7 in the Cumberland Foreside Village subdivision. The applicant is Kristen Martin of the Sanson Company. Owner is Peter Kennedy, Heritage Village Development Corporation, LLC, and the representative technically is William Savage, P.E., Acorn Engineering. Carla?
Same as the last one, exact same
But
thing.
it is a public hearing.
Yes. Any questions from the board? If not, I will open the public hearing for any comments on this particular item. Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing and look for a motion.
All right, I will move to reapprove the final major subdivision plan for White Rock Terrace, a 4-story, 55-unit senior affordable apartment building with a 13,500 square foot building footprint to be located off Skyview Drive on a 4.5-acre portion of the lot shown on tax assessor map R01, lot 11-7 in the Cumberland Foreside Village subdivision.
Do I hear a
With
second?
the same, with the same findings of fact and conditions of approval as contained in the original approval.
Very good.
I second the motion.
And a second, any discussion? All in favor? Opposed, abstentions?
I went to the site walk, and I'm pretty sure I was
Okay,
on the board at that
Okay.
time. So I think that
Okay.
one's all right, Pete.
sounds good. All right, so that's through the first, that's the good news. Now, the wheels will turn a little slower.
Thank you.
Okay.
The next item, item 3, is a public hearing, is a site plan amendment review for LGC Clinical Diagnostics located at 221 US Route 1, tax assessor map R02, lot 10A, to add a 5.5-acre solar array with 1.57 acres of perimeter fencing and a 170-foot-long gravel access drive. The applicant is Todd Anderson Sr., Vice President of Operations, LGC Clinical Diagnostics, Inc. Representative is Kevin Costello, RLA of SMRT Architects and Engineers, and the owner is LGC North America. Carla?
That is pretty much the history of this project. They're proposing to install a solar array for their own personal use to offset their own electric costs. And I think the issue really that needs to be looked at tonight is buffering, and I'm sure they're prepared to speak with you about that.
Peter, can I
Yes.
ask Carla a question? Technical question, maybe a little bit in the weeds, but my question relates to buffering of solar panels. Chapter 229, the site plan 10.9, mentions that mechanical devices need to be buffered, and then the Route 1 design standards on regarding buffering mentions service areas, and then mention loading docks and dumpsters, and the word utility is there. And then the definition of a service area doesn't seem to really include a solar panel. So as I drive around Cumberland, I see backs of solar panels where the animal hospital, I can see them on Drown Road. So it's a different issue than the 25-foot buffer, but in your mind or in the code enforcement officer's mind, are solar panels to be buffered completely? Given that I don't see where it is in the ordinances.
It's really not. The service area is usually something like where the dumpsters are and things like that. Solar panels weren't really anticipated at the time. Most of the ordinances were written, certainly not when the Route 1 design standards were done. The town, as you know, put a solar array on the landfill, and the planning board did look at the extent to which it could be buffered, given that the people that were seeing it were going to be looking down on it from Village Green. And so the town had to show that they did as much as they could to buffer it. And I think that's really the standard that we're looking at here, is what can they do? How visible will they be, especially from the neighbors, but also because we have design standards along Route 1.
Okay, thank you.
Well, that's
So
an
it's-
excellent question because.
It's a little ambiguous.
But we do
but-
have kind of a precedent set with the solar array because obviously during that, I was on the council and there were quite a few restless natives that showed up.
Yeah.
And the issue was buffering. So go ahead, could you
Thank you,
introduce
Colin.
yourselves and
Sure. Yeah, my name is Joe Grant. I'm representing LGC. Todd couldn't be here tonight. And we're also here with, I'll let her introduce herself.
Gretchen Prouty, civil engineer for SMRT, here for Ken Costello.
Well, thank you for your time. I'll get through this as quickly as I can. So just a quick overview of LGC. So we operate 52 sites in 18 countries. We purchased the main standards facility that was built at 221 US Route 1 in 2015. And we've been there ever since. We have approximately 70 employees on site in that facility. We are a clinical diagnostics company. We manufacture products for quality measurement tools. So we provide products to hospitals and clinicians all over the United States. We do have LEED Silver accreditation at our facility, so we have an ESG goal as an organization to maintain environmental standards as much as we can and energy standards to that effect. So it is a LEED Silver accredited facility. And then as part of our ESG goal that we have set to be carbon net zero by 2050, LGC is looking to make this investment into offsetting our entire energy consumption at the Cumberland Forsyth facility by the solar array. So speaking to that here from a overall perspective. Just to put it in perspective, so it's a 425 kilowatt DC, so it's 300 kilowatts of AC. We've already gone through, and I think Gretchen touches on this in the applications, all of the required permitting with CMP to make the interconnects and all of that. And annually offsetting about 516,000 pounds of carbon, which is equivalent to removing 50 cars from the road every year. So not an insignificant amount of offset. I'll let you speak to this part.
So I'm going to get into the nitty-gritty of the why we have the solar array where it is. I'm going to speak to wetlands, I'm going to speak to stormwater, speak to landscaping, and then also speak to abutters and impacts on all those, how they're all related, and how we ended up where it is now. So just to review, and the only reason I bring this up is the timing of some of these other agency permits kind of coincided with the deadline for the planning board. So some of them we had, and some of them we got after the deadline. So just to give you an update on what our current status is, we have been issued the storm law permit amendment from Maine DEP. We applied for a Tier 1 NERPA permit application to be reviewed concurrently with Maine DEP and Army Corps. Maine DEP determined, based on their review criteria, that the project was exempt. Army Corps did not determine that it was exempt, so it went through Army Corps review, and we received that permit at the beginning of April. So that's just an update on where it stands now. This is just a blow-up to just refresh you of the site plan. Just want to wonder, does the mouse work? Oh, the mouse works, great. And what I've done is I've colored in where all of the wetlands are across the site, because this is our biggest concern, and it is the reason why we have requested the reduction in the Route 1 75-foot setback to 25 feet. And of significance right now is the wetland that runs along Route 1, which looks like a ditch as you drive by, has been determined to be a wetland of significance, as well as the wetland down here. And then there's 3 other small wetlands within the proposed solar array. The lines here that are dashed, just to give you reference points, are the 25-foot setback line, and then the 75-foot setback line from Route 1, and then this curved line is the 75-foot setback from the blue line, which is a stream. Just to make it a little graphic representation, the array are the rectangles. This is a vegetative stormwater buffer that treats the proposed gravel access drive. So, and then for orientation, north is plan right. So as you're driving north on Route 1, and then this is Powell Road. So considerations for why it ended up where it is in terms of wetlands and the stream, the goal was 0 or minimal impact. By pushing the array closer to Route 1, it significantly reduced the wetland impact, and you can see by the green areas, by moving it north, we could get it completely out of the wetland of significance, and we maintain the 75-foot stream buffer. It is completely outside that stream buffer, and in addition to that, we talked with the solar array vendor about how far away things needed to be for shade management to avoid cutting any of the tall, mature trees. So between the stream buffer and where the solar array is installed, we'll be doing selective cutting of only things that shade the actual solar panels, which would reduce their energy input. And also, just to note, as moving it closer to Route 1, we are also able to, there's a mature tree line on the southern half. Let's see, let me go back real quick. I can show you where that is. Right here. This kind of squiggle line. Surveyors show these as individual trees within the site, but when there's a lot of trees, they show them as a squiggle line. So we do not impact this. So we do not have to cut trees down along this property line by moving it north. In terms of stormwater, to meet Maine DEP Chapter 500 requirements, the area within the solar array fencing is to be maintained as a meadow. And that includes not cutting it more than twice a year, so it will not be maintained as a landscaped area typical of what you see around the adjacent LGC building. The vegetative buffer treats the gravel drive, and it's 50 feet. It has to be maintained. It's a deed-restricted area, also to be maintained as a meadow, and they kind of overlap. But that area, Maine DEP will require us to put something on the deed saying that it must be maintained as a meadow. And just note that there is a small portion of that that is outside the fence, and that is along Powell Road. So landscaping considerations for plant selection. We did not choose plants that would mature to a height in excess of 8 feet, because that would shade the solar array within distances of the solar array. They're selected to be naturalized and harmonious with the wetlands. So we wanted a natural look, not a landscape look. Just want to point out that you cannot plant or landscape within a wetland. That is considered fill, and that is considered an impact. So extending plantings into the wetland actually increases our impact to them. And then lastly, we kind of put up these, I don't know if the abutters got an opportunity to see these are renderings based on early winter photographs of existing conditions, and then we overlaid our landscaping plan and the solar array on it, so you could visually see what the visual impact is on each of the 3 sites. So this first is Route 1. So you see we've proposed a 6-foot slatted privacy fence in a kind of a black neutral color, and the landscaping in front of it. Just want to note that the area between the fence and the wetland of significance has been completely filled in with plants. So we've planted it to the maximum extent possible and wrapped it around slightly on the southern end until we started kind of getting into where the mature trees are that we didn't want to clear.
On that, on that image, could you point out the 25-foot zone? Where would 25 feet be from the curb,
Oh, the 20,
from the telephone pole?
oh, from the 12-foot pole, I think it's easier to show you. Let me go back to the
Okay,
original
yeah,
plan.
if you have a different,
So I kind of circle, I wonder if it'll let me zoom in. Nope. This red circle right there, right here. Oh, is that okay?
It is, but we won't be able to hear you as well, but.
So this right here, this to the edge of this array is 26.7 feet. So this is kind of coming into the property line, which is kind of runs down the middle of the ditch. Is that clear? Or is that
and what's the distance to the closest panel?
26.5 feet?
All right, thank you.
And so let's get, so any other questions on the picture? So it just kind of points down there that we've provided both a screened fence and landscaping, not one or the other, we provided both. The planting was chosen to not shade the array because that is the side that the array is closest to the fence. And then all available space that's possible, we've provided pretty robust landscaping along Route 1. This is the abutter to the east, on the eastern property line. This is from his driveway looking at the solar array. This is what the existing trees are that are right there. And what we're proposing is to not remove any of them. And as you can see, the solar array has been put in here, and it's right here. And the closest panel from the property line is 164 feet. So our determination is, looking at this, no additional buffering should be required, because you can barely see it. And then this last one is Powell Road. For this one, the majority of the existing vegetation and the trees are to be remain. The trees that we could select, we've tagged them on our demolition plan to be protected. We will have to remove some vegetation to create the vegetative buffer and install the gravel road. The gravel road is 16 feet wide at the entrance to where they would go onto the property. But other than that, the plan is to keep as much existing vegetation, restore the existing vegetation to what it is now in kind of a natural state. And then there you see the solar array, and we're proposing that this condition is enough to be considered enough buffering to break up that visual impact from the neighbor. And this, the closest solar array in this case is 94 feet from the edge of pavement. So the actual homeowner would be beyond the width of the road to their property line. And that's all we have, so any questions?
Questions from the board? Paul?
It looked like you had about 14 rows of panels, is that right? Something like that.
Yeah.
And each one is what, 2 high?
No, it's one big panel.
Oh, it's one big
It's one
panel,
big
about
panel.
3 feet deep, 3 feet wide?
Yes, and about 11 feet high at the highest point. And then
So
it goes down to
if you eliminated, to get away, to get further back, if you eliminated, say, 3 panels in each row, you'd be a lot further from the road, right?
We worked with Revision on what we could do, and a lot of it has to do with how the panels are oriented for receiving the sunlight. And what we were able to do, if you notice all of the rows, the vertical rows, they're all different lengths. So we were able to modify them in that way.
Yeah, I have panels at home on the
Yeah.
ground, and after I put them in, the first thing a friend said is, it's too bad you can't put trees in front of those. Some people don't like the look of panels, I do, but a lot of people don't, and we
Yeah.
may hear later.
And that's understood.
But all it wouldn't affect my guess is they're 38 degrees, that's between summer and winter. That doesn't matter, because all I'm saying is you could have fewer panels in each row, and therefore be further from the road. I'm not saying you plant something, it wouldn't change shading. I've done shading analysis for my own, but I believe that's a possibility if that,
Yeah, I mean, we could certainly, if you remove the panels, then we
You'd-
don't achieve offset.
yeah, you would have less.
We'd have significantly
You'd have
less
less
energy
power for sure.
creation.
Yeah, okay.
This is
Which
meant-
would make it, which would make that, obviously the driving force for LGC in terms
Yeah,
of
well,
meeting
your
our
goal
ESG
is commendable. That's a
do
great
that.
goal, if it fits
Sure.
all the rules that we're going to be talking about. Thank you.
Other questions, Josh?
What's the right-of-way for Route 1 in that area, do you know?
Not offhand, no.
Okay.
Do you know, Carla?
I'm sorry, I shook my head. No, I don't.
Do we know what it is typically?
They vary, and they often shade to one side or the other. It's not exactly from the center line of the road out, so Bill Shane usually pops around. He might be back. What were you thinking about that?
I'm just wondering, I mean, I believe if they were getting a building permit, they'd need to go to MDOT, correct? For figuring out what that right-of-way is?
Oh, their survey shows
Our
that.
survey would
Yeah,
show it.
Oh,
it's
okay.
already shown. They're not within the right-of-way. That's what you mean.
Okay.
Yeah. No, they can't propose a plan on land they don't own, so.
Other questions from the board? Then what I'll do is open up the public hearing for anybody that wants to comment on this. Just state your name and step to the podium. Welcome.
Yeah, my name is Harvey Wheeler, and I am the concerned abutter. And I believe one of those photographs was taken from my driveway. And as you look from my driveway toward these prospective panels, that's my concern. I like trees. I like the looks of trees. I don't like the looks of panels. So I'm trying to get a handle on what it's going to look like from my property as I look toward the west. Am I going to see a fence? Am I going to see vegetation? The trees that you showed in the photograph are on my property, the tall ones. And they're really old pine trees, so most of the vegetation is way up at the top. So it's almost like mass of a ship, so you can look right through. So in the wintertime, when there's no vegetation, and I look out toward Route 1, I can see traffic going by and I can hear traffic going by. But in the summertime, when that space is filled up with vegetation, I can't see any traffic and the noise factor goes way down. So that's my concern, and maybe the people in the know can address that as being a view from my driveway.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
This is, let's see, this is the property line right here. So this is
What is?
right here, this line right here.
I don't see what you...
Yeah.
Oh, maybe I'll do up here.
I'll point, you can drive.
This right here, this dash line is the property line.
Okay, yeah.
So your driveway is south of this, there's a shed, and this area was surveyed to be the wooded tree line. So the panels are 167 feet away from your property line. We also have the wetlands of concern, so we would like to keep this as is, to the greatest extent possible, to not impact that.
So where will the fence be relative to?
The fence is here.
Okay, so will there be any vegetation planted on our side of that fence?
No, we're just planning on maintaining what vegetation is there now, letting it grow up and naturalize. Sorry. There is currently no plan to add additional vegetation.
So are you assuring me that from my property, when I look over in that direction, I will see vegetation and not a fence? Because of what's already there?
You will see what is already there. What is
Right,
already
but
there
are
and what
you-
will
are
be
you-
allowed to continue to grow.
Are you assuring me that without you planting any more vegetation on our side of that fence, that we will be seeing no fence?
Based on our analysis, this is the picture we took from your property line. So this is what we have to show during early winter for what is seen from your property line. And when we impose the solar fence, which is about a foot high, yes, you will be able to see it as shown in this, right here. That line right there is the solar array.
I can't really tell. I can't figure out what you're. So that's the height of the fence?
Let me just move back here so people can hear. That is the height of the solar array. The proposed fencing along that side, maybe that wasn't clear, is a agricultural fence. It's not a chain link fence, so it's something that you would be able to see through. Bless you.
And that's 8 feet high?
6 feet high.
6 feet high?
Lorraine?
No, I was just, Bridget,
Oh.
stepping away for a minute.
So it sounds like there is some question that they still are going to be able to, he is still going to be able to see that entire array, or most of the array from his property as it stands right now. Is that correct?
He's going to be able to see as shown on the existing condition. We are not proposing to do any construction near his side of the property. We are only proposing to do work north of the wetland. The only thing we're going to do in that wetland of significance is install the posts for an agricultural fence. That's it. The array is north of the wetlands of significance. So we wanted to maintain that as close to existing conditions and not impact the wetland.
What is an agricultural fence for?
That was in the plan set. It's kind of like a square. It's typically wooden posts, 4x4 wooden posts. It's what you typically see around solar arrays. If you've seen any, is it near Augusta? They're in some of the highway, like off ramps, but it's kind of like a 6x6 inch square of thin wire, supported by wood posts.
So it isn't agriculture in the sense that there's plants and all this stuff. It's the
Security.
nomenclature.
Yeah, nomenclature, yeah.
So it's basically a metal fence.
Yes, but it doesn't provide a visual barrier.
Okay. I'm still not sure I'm hearing that this gentleman's concerns of buffering to see that are being done, but let's get through the rest of the public comment, and the board will come back to that.
Hello, I'm Reva Crute. I live nearby on Schooner Ridge, and I sent some comments in to
Yes.
yourselves.
Oh, thank you. We were going to read them, so go ahead.
Well, I'm not going to reread them. I did send some comments, and I'm also on the Lands and Conservation Commission, and Mike Schwint sent in some comments as well. I'm also on the Sustainability Subcommittee, so heavily in favor of the concept of solar panels, and it's fantastic because our climate action plan is calling for businesses in Cumberland to do all kinds of things, and you'll be helping that. And obviously, wetland conservation is important. What I'm concerned about is the conflict here between some of the fabulous aspirations for the solar, which is fantastic, and to preserve the ecology, which is also great, but the conflict with essentially the viewscape for the neighbors. So what I didn't see is I had not seen those photographs. They were not in the plan that I had forwarded to me. I did see this. And I didn't know the height of the solar panels. That was not, I couldn't find it in the material that I had, which was, I think, the proposal. So what I've heard today is that I knew the fence was 6 foot high. The solar panels are going to be 11 foot high. So I think that that's something that we should think about in terms of the viewscape for the people driving on Route 1, but also the people going on Powell and the neighbors. I'm not an abutter, so I don't speak on behalf of abutters. We have one. I was pleased to see that the chain link fence seems to be going to be painted black as opposed to being metal. That will help a little bit, I think, in terms of the view. I couldn't see on the photographs, I couldn't see what the fence was going to look like. And so I am concerned because although it's in one way wonderful that you're going to leave the wetland, because you can't plant in a wetland, it's also that you're going to be putting up all kinds of metal objects in the middle of that land, and you will see through because it's actually scrubby. It's a scrubby piece of property in terms of what it looks like. So I think by putting that quantity of solar panels in, I think that we should speak about viewscape. I think we should speak in all areas, and how to handle the fact that on the Powell side and on the side, just below in this map, just below the solar panel, there are clearly viewscapes. On the Route 1 for a moment, you said in your presentation that you would, that the landscaping proposed for Route 1 is not going to be the same kind of level of intensive landscaping that you do on your building side, which I understand if you're doing wetland preservation, but it's also a loss because it means it's not going to actually cover that fence. So I have a little bit of a concern there. But there's nothing proposed, on the, the north side and the east side, or on the right and the bottom, to help camouflage the fence from folk living there or folk walking past. And then I have my last item, is that I do have a little bit of a safety question, and again, it's just for information. That's a very difficult turn because it's at an acute angle. Everybody takes it wide. Has someone done some work on that? Can we be sure that what you're proposing isn't going to make any difference to what we currently have, which I think is a little bit of a hazard? So that's my last question. Thank you for your time.
Yes, why don't you address the
couple that I heard that I can address quickly is the fence along Route 1. If it wasn't clear from the photo, what is proposed is chain link fence with the black slats that go within the chain link, like the plastic. It's not painted, or it's not like a wooden fence. It's chain link with the privacy slats, just not, just in a color that is more muted. And then the landscape area that we talk about, I think you misunderstood what I meant. What I meant was the landscape architect chose the landscaping so that it would be more of a naturalized look and kind of go with the theme of a wetland. And it's not going to be landscaped in terms of a manicured landscaping area like you see around the building. So it's going to be more of a naturalized look. And those are the plants he chose to be there. It's not that it's not landscaped, and he has landscaped all available space between the fence line and where we have to stop to not impact the wetland. So that's the distinguishment there, is it's just supposed to grow naturally and blend in and cover more of the fence as it grows. And then as for the road, I can't speak to that because that's really something MDOT.
Just a note, I did not see the written comments that were provided by the abutter. So I don't, if those were emailed to Carla, I don't know if they went out, but I haven't seen them.
Oh, well,
I haven't
Should
seen
have been
them either.
uploaded.
Yeah.
It should have been uploaded by Christina,
yeah,
everything that
they were
comes
on
in.
the website. I have them,
Yeah.
I have them here.
All right.
So any other members of the public that would choose to make any comments? Please step forward.
Good evening. My name is Robert Knupp. I'm from Hawks Ridge. I'm not an abutter, but I drive past the area frequently, so I know pretty much where this area is. And I wanted to say, first of all, that I'm a big proponent of buffering. I think that it's a very important thing along Route 1, and I can give you an example that you are familiar with. We had many concerns about Lakeside Concrete and its proposal to move its dump site to a place where it's very visible along Route 1. They built a wooden container in front of the dump site of raw wood. It's very ugly. We asked the owner whether he would consider painting it some shade of gray or something. You heard about the privacy fence, black in color. He said no because he didn't want to have the constant issue of having to repaint it. And we recently had an issue that Carla is familiar with the owner refusing to turn off all of the bright lights at nighttime, and eventually a notice of violation was issued, and after he received it, apparently he must have talked to his lawyers who reviewed the plan and saw clearly that he had an obligation to turn out the lights. My only point is that I think that you have to pay very close attention to the buffering requirements, and I hope that you do with this application. I have nothing further. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? I'll keep things open just in case some stuff comes up in the board's discussion that warrants somebody with that wants to ask more questions and everything. We try to accommodate as much as we can within the rules. So, okay, back to the board. George?
I just have a thought relative to Mr. Wheeler's concern. The aesthetics are important, and at the same time, obviously, the money bucket isn't completely boundless. I mean, if you spend enough money, you can keep aesthetics in pretty good shape. And in my view, our job is to be reasonable about what might be done to enhance what they've already decided makes sense there. And it just occurs to me that looking at that one photograph from Harvey Wheeler's driveway didn't impress me very much. I'm just thinking, how much trouble does it take to get on the other side of those trees and build a decent buffer that you're not going to be looking through? I don't think that's an unreasonable desire on the abutter's part.
Okay, other comments? Paul?
Just a couple thoughts. I agree with what George just said, and I wonder if a vine, there you can plant, so whether there's a perennial vine or something that would totally obscure view towards the panels. The other thing, though, is regarding Route 1, is one of the waivers to approve 75 to 25 feet, right? I mean, that's the waiver. 25 feet's from about here to those chairs. And you can't plant anything there, correct? However, what my point earlier, that if you move further back, maybe you could plant something. You'd have to eliminate some panels, but you could be further away, and then again, maybe you could plant a buffer that would obscure the panels without affecting the shading of the panels. So 25 feet is not very far, and again, versus what's normally required is 75 feet.
Yeah, as a further thing on that, on the sign on Route, on the fence on Route 1, you were planning to put some kind of vegetation in there that was, because yeah, I've got a real, I mean, we're giving you, you're requesting a 25-foot buffer, but at the same time, even with the things you've shown, driving down Route 1, you're still going to see that fence. And as I say, we've tried very, very hard when we set up the Route 1 design standards to, again, kind of protect the view from the side, and I think everybody is real interested, but I've got a real problem with not getting more dense vegetation. I guess if you lived in Mississippi, you could put kudzu vines in there or something, but I'm not sure that the way it stands now, I'm very happy with the vegetation, and I also agree with Paul and George that something needs to be done with regard to that gentleman's issue with the buffering down there. So I will, oh, and I do want to read some comments from Ann Sawchuk on this. She said, I applaud LDC Clinical Diagnostics for going solar, and I think we need to encourage a successful installation. However, I would want to know Lands and Conservation comments on the waiver of the setback, particularly on the question of impact to the wetlands. Is this waiver really necessary to protect the wetlands? I'm not sure the buffering really does the job on Route 1, and it's not very attractive. The not very attractive fence looks low. Is there another suggestion for plantings that would both hide the array but not cut the light? Could earthen berm with plantings on top work? Well, we know that's not true because of the wetlands. So I guess, board, where do we want to go on this thing? Josh?
Well, just a few more comments. Well, not to 100% contradict what was said earlier about the desire of trying to use buffering to kind of offset the view. But I also would say that I'm not sure the requirement of buffering is complete obscurance. It is to buffer to some degree, which I think is a judgment call. My biggest concern with this is going 50 feet into the required buffer on Route 1 and not having something that then kind of makes up for that lack of distance with more robust buffering within the distance provided. And I think that puts us in a fragile position should others, I don't want to say we're setting a precedent because we don't set precedent, but I do think it calls into question any other time our ability to enforce that buffer and be consistent with our prior decisions, which I do think is important.
Well, you said it better than I did, I guess. I would agree with that. Any other comments? Yes.
Yeah, I was going to say the same. I am a proponent of solar. We have a solar array on our roof and our net zero. And it's a really good feeling every year to only pay a connection fee and no electric bills. That being said, I heard clearly the abutters and the need to protect abutting properties. And I think there is a difference between protecting and obscuring. I don't know if we can table this, and to me, seeing this, putting eyes on this, you know, we can't really tell from the photographs. Can we do a site visit for something like this? Can we walk this property and invite abutters and any other concerned folks to actually see what the property looks like, what the existing vegetation looks like now when it hasn't fully come in, you know, because that's really what I think the issue is. It's not going to be in the summer. It's going to be, you know, when all the leaves have fallen off the trees, and what does that property actually look like? So I would suggest that we possibly table this and set up a site visit and put eyes on what this actually looks like from all sides, and I would invite the abutters to be there so that they can show their concerns as well.
Any other thoughts? Yeah, I think when I read this, saw the comments from our engineer, I mean, Planning Board 101, we have these 17 standard conditions of approval, and the three that probably bring up the biggest issues before us are the handling of runoff, groundwater / such, traffic. Our little friends down on Route 1 are always there for us anytime we do anything. And then I think generally the biggest one is really the buffering. And when I saw this, and it just looked like a red flag. So I do think I think Josh's point is well done. Is that giving up that 75-foot buffering sets a lot of issues, especially if we can't have adequate covering. So do I sense from the board that we need to table this and further have the applicants further review the buffering? Does the board feel any need for a site walk on this thing also? Josh?
I think this might be a very good use of a sidewalk.
So maybe what we can do is set up a site walk an hour before the next planning board meeting. In the meantime, if you folks could kind of put your heads together and see if we can come up with something that's going to do a better job with the buffering on Route 1 and also take care of the folks on Powell Road. And I think on the comment from Schooner Ridge, I think when you're up there looking down, you know, it's going to be there. But certainly, as far as looking at from the ground level and everything, it's a legitimate thing. So I'll await. Yes,
Carla, given that we're a week later than usual, is there time to notify abutters?
Yes, we can do that. I am thinking we should probably do the site walk sooner rather than later, because it would give them time to, assuming, I'm sorry, that they would want to come back next month.
well, why don't we?
I'll check with Christina, find out the soonest I can schedule it, and I'll let you know.
And we'll schedule it at everybody's convenience. I mean, we're trying, we think obviously this is a good project, but the thing is that we've got to sort out this buffering thing. I mean, all the rest of the engineering, you've done you're preserving the wetlands, and the little chickadees are going to be happy. Yes.
Can I just make
Yes.
just one final comment? Because I think, you know, ultimately you're struggling with the same things we struggled with as we laid it out. It's a balance between getting the solar array minimized to the minimum size it can be, get it out of the wetlands, and still provide the buffering for the abutters. You know, we can all have differences of opinions. Just want to note that per revision, the solar panel, our height limitation for vegetation for future consideration for increased buffering is 8 feet. So just so you know, if we start moving the buffer south, then the property owner to the south with the tall trees, now we're lopping off trees. So it's kind of it's a balancing act a little bit. So just want to put that out there for his consideration. And
Right.
Ken, our landscape architect, will speak more to it. I'm not a plant person, I'm a civil engineer. Glad you love the stormwater. So, you know, kind of thing. So he can speak more to that, so we'll definitely have him on site. If you have particular plant questions, as a butter owners, I know we talked about vines, we talked about stuff like that. I can't answer those questions, Ken can.
Well, I know as far as the Route 1 thing, honeysuckle
It's tough
plants
because we
grow
can't,
like,
Yeah, and he can speak to that, but like, we kind of did with what we could with the area that we were allowed to plant in. That's kind of what we had to go on. And then my final question to the board is this seems to be the only outstanding issue of all of the proponents. Is it a possibility that we could get a conditional of approval based on acceptable landscaping at this meeting? Or is that something that we need to go to full planning board again?
Well, it's one of, I think buffering is what, as I've mentioned before, is one of the three major issues, and we have had, I think, legitimate and significant public comment on this, and I know that, I think when we reviewed our packets, I mean, it was something jumping out there, so I think, I don't speak for the board, but I think we would be more comfortable. I mean, when things are, as we saw with the first thing tonight, if all the little ducks are aligned in the row, we can get something done in 1 or 2 meetings. But when something comes up like this, we have to respect public comments on this, and usually we can come up with something. So I will ask the board for action on this.
On the
Called
question,
table.
or I make a motion that we table this issue until our next meeting.
Do I hear a second? A second, further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? So we want you to succeed, but stuff still needs to get done.
And I was going to say, I think the site visit will be very beneficial to
Yeah.
everybody, because that way it's not like, hey, bring us another rock. Nope, that's not the rock we wanted. Bring us another rock. I think it'll answer a lot of questions, and it'll expedite what happens at the next meeting.
I mean, my education on landscaping is from the Wheaties box top and cutting thorn bushes. All right, we're moving on to item number 4, which is a public hearing, and this is an amendment to an approved site plan for MSA 51 for reconfiguration of portable classrooms at the Greeley Middle School campus located off Main Street at Tax Assessor Map U11, Lot 1, and for the Mabel Wilson campus located off Tuttle Road at Tax Assessor Map U11, Lot 9. The owner applicant is MSAD 51, and the representatives are Patrick J. Carroll, Carroll Associates, and Doug Breer of Steve Blatt Architects. And I think we also have the SAD 51 business manager, Scott Poulin, here with us, too.
Good evening. My name's Pat Carroll, and I'm trying to get
Okay.
an image up here.
Okay, in
if
the
I
meantime,
can,
Carla,
so-
why don't you lead us through?
Sure. I'll read you the memo that describes what's happening so the folks at home know what they're exactly proposing. The proposal is for the addition of 2 new portable classroom buildings, a shade structure, a small concession stand, the relocation of a 3rd portable classroom building, and the removal of 5 existing portable classroom buildings on the campus. They are proposing to do this in 3 phases. Phase 1 would involve the work at the Mabel I. Wilson School, and is slated for completion in the fall 2023. So there is a time sensitivity here with the portable review and hopefully approval. Phase 2 will be for changing out the portables at the Greeley Middle School in 2024, and Phase 3 will be the addition of a concession stand at Greeley Middle School, also in 2024. The use is classified as an accessory building to a municipal use. It is permitted use in the medium-density residential zoning district. The minimum lot size is 1 acre. The parcel is 51.4 acres in size, and there's also a setback overlay that is applicable here. Looking to see if any waivers are requested. I don't believe there were. So other than that, it's a very straightforward proposal. The town engineers reviewed it, and all the comments have been addressed that he had. How are we doing there, Pat?
Well,
Can
the
I
only
help
thing
you
that's
at all?
not straightforward is,
Your presentation?
yes, the
And
presentation.
Carla, there were a few waivers.
They were, okay. Flip through here. Oh, yes, there were.
Here we go.
Apologize. Yeah, page 2.
So if I can figure out how to,
So we do those afterwards, is that right, Josh?
Well, normally when Christina's here, we have a nice little handy thing on the back of our agenda.
I've got it, but I don't see anything about where we do the waivers.
It's right after the public hearing, I believe.
Okay, all right.
I'm going off from memory.
I thought you would have memorized that after all these meetings, Judge.
Carla, it doesn't mean they don't change.
Well, we're still dealing with a semi-amateur, so.
are we ready?
You ready? We are ready, Pat.
Okay, so I apologize, I for some reason was having trouble bringing this up. But my name's Pat Carroll, and I'm a landscape architect with Carroll Associates. And we've been working for MSAD 51 for, probably 20 years or more. We started working with the district back when the middle school was first built. We've done several projects at Mabel Wilson, we've done several projects at the high school, and also the middle school. And it seems like the last few years, we've been coming back to the board almost on an annual basis to talk about portable classrooms. And as you know, there was a proposal for a new school that got voted down, but the reality is that kids continue to be coming into the school system. And we continue to, the school district continues to have a strong demand for classroom space, and until we get a new school, we're going to be subject to this kind of procedure on a pretty regular basis. But the idea now is to come in and talk to you guys and seek approval for basically at least a 2-year process here that would bring us up to an addition of I think it's 12 classrooms, which should accommodate up to 200 or so new students in the school system. So as you know, Mabel Wilson is kind of the most overcrowded school. This is Mabel Wilson down here. There currently is a 10 classroom building in there that was, I think, approved last year. In addition to that, there are two classroom buildings. So it's a total of 14 classrooms on that site right now, portable classrooms. And the intent is to take the 10 classroom building and shift it around on the site, basically move it onto where the playground area is, which is called Tuttletown, and then remove the two classroom buildings and put a 12 classroom building in that location. And also as part of that, Tuttletown would get relocated to the existing softball field, which is currently being used partially for the smaller portables and also for playground space. So that's the Mabel Wilson site. The middle school site, currently there are 3 two-classroom buildings on that site. They're located out the back of the school on the existing softball field here. And the intent there is to remove those and replace them with a 10 classroom building on that site. And then the third piece of this would be over, I don't know if you can see the cursor, but over between the high school and the middle school is the soccer game field. There's an equipment shed and restrooms and so forth there. As part of improvements to that field, they would like the ability to put in a new snack shack in that location. So it's really a 3-piece project. Mabel Wilson would be improved this year coming up this summer as soon as school's out. The middle school would be improved. Those improvements would commence next year, and also the snack shack would occur in 2024. So I can go through some details about what it is we're proposing, and then open it up to the board for some questions, if you'd like. This is the Mabel Wilson site. As I mentioned, there are currently 3 portable classroom buildings here. The large one is the 10 classroom building. I believe that was installed last year. And the 2 smaller ones, you can see they're sitting over the skinned infield for the old softball field, are two classroom buildings there, or 4 classroom buildings. So, and you can see off to the upper, behind the 10 classroom building is the existing Tuttletown playground area for the kids. So the idea on Mabel Wilson is to take that 10 classroom building and relocate it up closer to the existing school, and then remove the 2 smaller classroom buildings and replace that with a larger 12 classroom building that would be located pretty much parallel to the parking lot, and then relocate Tuttletown kind of out onto a portion of the existing softball field. In addition to the Tuttletown relocation, the district would also like to provide a shade pavilion, similar to what's already installed over at the middle school, just because it's a pretty exposed site. It gets pretty sunny and hot out there, and these little kiddos need some kind of shade occasionally. So that it's a really pretty minimal intrusion into the site. These buildings are all set on concrete piers, and we basically just grade underneath it to make it relatively flat. The existing drainage pretty much stays the same. There are existing utilities on the site that feed the existing buildings now, and those would just be kind of rerouted to accommodate the new buildings. So there's pretty minimal improvements as far as water, sewer, and power go. And it's a pretty minimal kind of thing. And as far as Tuttletown goes, we haven't shown any real kind of structures or playground equipment in there. My understanding is that the district is working with a playground committee, and they're charged with coming up with the actual designs and funding for that portion of the playground area. At the middle school, you can see these are the 2 classroom buildings that were located. I think those might have been, was that last year too? Last year. And, you know, given the state of the student expansion, you know, these are already kind of outdated. So the idea here is to kind of replace those pretty much in the same spot with a 10 classroom building. You can see here, you can see the, I don't know if you can see it from there, but there are kind of, you can see dashed in underneath here is kind of the location of the existing classroom building. So it's pretty much sitting right on the same spot. And then off to the left here, you can see up by the equipment shed, there's a small little, I think it's like 24 by 24, it's some small little, maybe it's 18 by 18 size freestanding shed that would be utilized as a snack shack for the high school games. Again, this shows the utilities. On the middle school, currently those classrooms, those portable classrooms do not have water and sewer. And part of the reason was because initially when they were installed, it's pretty difficult to get sewer service to these buildings. So we can get water service out of the mechanical room right here, but to get sewer service, we've got to run a line all the way down around the school and out into a sewer line out in the parking lot. So it's a fairly major endeavor. That's why it wasn't done initially, but you know, these buildings will be installed such that they do have full water and sewer capabilities for the kids. These are some diagrams, they're elevations of what those existing classroom buildings are going to look like. This is the 10 classroom building. It's pretty simple and kind of mundane, but that's kind of what these buildings are. They're made by manufacturer Schiavi, and they crank these things out. You can see them on just about every school in Maine these days. So this would be a 10-classroom building. The entrances are off the ends. You can see here on both ends is the entrance. All of these buildings will be set such that they will be fully accessible to all students and staff. There's a series of ramps and so forth. I think they're typically going to be about 2 to 2.5 feet off the ground. So there'll be a series of wooden ramps that you can go out and see what's going on now on any of these classroom buildings, and it's pretty similar to what we're proposing here. This is the layout of the 10 classroom building. The 12 classroom building would be the same, except it would have 2 additional rooms tucked off of this left-hand side. The bathroom facilities are in the middle here between the kids, and then it's just a corridor running down through here. Pretty simple but effective, and it's unfortunate, but this is what we have to deal with. This is the 12 classroom building. You can see it's pretty much the same. It's just a little bit longer. And this is the shade structure that's proposed for the Mabel Wilson site. It's just be an open structure, wood columns. I think it's a metal roof on it, I believe. Is that right, Scott? Metal roof? Yeah. Concrete slab underneath it, and it's really just to provide a place for kids to gather and kind of get out of the sun. There could also be some outdoor classroom use. During school, they could bring a class out there and enjoy being outside. So that's pretty much it for right now. Glad to find this. Glad to offer any kind of comments or questions, answer any questions you might have. There were some waiver requests that we had, and I don't know if you want to go through those, or if they're pretty straightforward, we can talk about it during discussion.
Yeah, we'll address those a little later, but we do see them.
Okay.
And we'll sit down with you on that. So, board, questions?
Other than waivers?
What?
I just have a quick question. Not to go down a rabbit hole, it just popped into my head as I was listening, particularly as you were adding a lot more classrooms here. Are those buildings secure? I mean, do the outer doors lock once the students transition into the next period, to be into those classrooms?
You want to address that? Sure.
I had the same thought.
That's actually one of the reasons why we want to go to the larger buildings as opposed to the individual smaller buildings, is because they do have a greater security to them. And we actually have a card swipe system that's on each end of the doors for exit and entrance. They're fully alarmed, and we're also going to increase the size of the fencing along the road sign too, along the road edge as well. But no, they will be secure.
Okay, thank you. And then one other question. So, and this is coming from someone who doesn't have a child in this school system, but it seems like we have a bow wave coming, because as we're increasing the classrooms at Mabel I. Wilson, that bow wave is going to shift to the middle school, and then it's going to shift to the high school. And I'm hoping that we can come to some solution in the future that prepares us in a more stable way, rather than constantly adding more and more of these portable classrooms. So just my 2 cents.
No, the board's intent is to go back out to referendum on a school project, because obviously we have increasing enrollment and will continue to grow as we go along. And that's why, this is a short-term plan for 2 years.
Yeah, thank you, thank you.
Scott, I have a question. Based on the comments about water, these are all sprinkled, I believe, right?
They have to be, by code, they have to be
Yeah,
sprinkled.
okay.
And that was one of the things that we found 2 years ago, I believe it was, when we started putting them in. That was something new that we didn't know about from the fire marshal's office.
And what's the largest that Scavi makes?
I'm not
number of
sure.
classrooms?
I'm not sure what the largest is.
Must be close.
What's interesting about these is that you can continue to add sections to them because they don't divide down the middle. They divide in sections and add like, like Lincoln Logs, I guess, as you go along. So each time you add, you're adding 2 classrooms, 2 classrooms, 2 classrooms to it.
So we're building a new school anyway.
We're building one.
Yeah.
And, it's a significant expense to the district to do this, but it's something that we have to do because we've outgrown the buildings, and other work that we're looking to do this summer as well, just to put it out there, is we've got HVAC work going on the building, Mabel I. Wilson, but we're also looking to take out the stage and the cafeteria and basically increase that common space for lunchtime, so.
So based on your population analysis, how far out are you good for? You're going to be back next year?
I don't expect to be back next year, but I can tell you, we have enrollment studies and so forth we could talk about, but, we are hoping to be out and building a new school in another 3 years.
That may be a good time to do the waivers, because I had a couple questions on
I
there, so let's,
You mentioned
Oh, sorry.
you were gonna the fence was gonna be taller, and I think the only section that's fully fenced in is around MIW, is that right?
That's correct.
Are there any plans to put a fence around the middle school property?
At this point, we haven't looked to that because certainly it's something that we can consider, but we haven't looked at fencing that area. That area is probably a little bit more secure because it's behind the building and it's, off of the high school. Unlike Mabel I. Wilson School where the modulars are, as they're closer to that road, right? So we're looking at increasing the height of that fence along there, along with the gate that's there that will be secure as well.
Okay.
Okay.
okay, they have requested 4 waivers.
Yeah, are you still looking for a waiver for the ability to serve? Because it looks like you actually have requested one.
Well, I think that we requested one. I think that the staff report came back and said that they thought as a condition of approval that they wanted to see that. We have applied for.
Okay, so you don't need a waiver.
We don't need a
We-
waiver.
we might
I
need a
guess as long
condition
as
of
we-
approval.
As long as we get a letter from the water district, we're fine.
Right.
We just haven't received it yet.
Stormwater. Can we waive that? So we don't need a waiver? Right, it's all impervious surface already, correct? So it really doesn't change this. So we don't really need a waiver, we just, it is what it is.
Yeah,
We're
I
only
mean, I
doing an
think the other-
amendment.
the other
We're only
thing-
doing an amendment anyway. So it's not being amended. Erosion control. What's that? Right, and you're including standard details.
Yeah, we have
And you're
standard
gonna have somebody
details,
check,
right.
and there's not gonna be much erosion. So I'm not really sure is there more detail that would be required that we should consider waiving?
No.
So I don't think we need that one either. And buffering and landscaping, I'm fine with waiving it. That's probably gotta be, well, it's not even really it's just gonna be an amended site plan. You don't need a waiver from it. They may be changing the landscape plan, but that will be covered by the amendment. So I don't think we have any waivers.
Okay.
I'm happy to be, does anybody feel any different? But I don't think there's anything that's actually really required if they are requesting a ability to serve letter, which,
Yeah, no, I agree.
So we don't need to make any motions or everything.
I do think we forgot to close the public hearing, is that?
Well, I haven't opened the public hearing yet.
Oh, yeah. Well, so we haven't closed the public hearing, have we?
No, we have not.
Peter, you had, there was a question around enrollment and stuff. Would you like me to just address that
Sure.
quickly? Okay, so just taking a look at Mabel I. Wilson School, the capacity of the building is roughly, it's around 550 is the capacity of that building. Currently, we're at 763 students, okay? So we've taken up, over probably, must have been 7 or 8 summers, we were completely reconfiguring the inside of that building every summer. And then we started adding modulars. And by probably somewhere around 2028, 29, we should be at 822 students on that campus, okay? On that particular building. On that building. And then when you take a look at the middle school, the current enrollment is 795, and the capacity on that building is about 650. And we will be, by 2026, 27, we'll be at 922 students. And by 2029, 30, we'll be at over 1,000 students at that particular building. So that's the enrollment where we're headed.
So there's no free lunch in this deal.
There is not.
We're paying now or we're paying later. So it sounds like we've addressed the waiver issue. So at this point, I'll open the public hearing for any member of the public that would like to comment. Seeing, yep.
Bill Shane, town manager and grandfather to a student here, so I do have concerns. I'm going to jump right to it. I think we have to basically work on this plan, and Josh, thank you so much for walking through a lot of those issues, and I'm looking for the fence on the Mabel Wilson ball field area. So if you haven't been there, or if you haven't watched the video that was presented before the referendum last year, it was really, really important to see that. Are you going to move that fence as far back as you can to gain that sliver of land there?
This triangle here?
Yes, yes.
I think we should, yeah.
Yeah,
There's some
okay.
grade issues there. It's not flat, like,
Kids don't need flat, they need space. And it is Logan Airport there during recess time. It is bumper to bumper, shoulder to shoulder. And it's, congratulations, Scott. I think this is going in the right direction to give kids more space. And Scott basically and I have met, and we've tried to help as much as we can with our Public Works Department, and that'll continue. We're in a crisis, and this is a crisis, and I'm thankful, Josh, for you going through that and trying to be assisting in helping this as well, because we got to work together and we've got to get through this. And it's going to be 3 difficult years for the school to hopefully get a positive referendum passed, but there's still going to be time while that building gets designed and built too that we're going to be waiting. And my gosh, we've already, these buildings are enough to house 2 full classes of kids, 2 full classes. I am just amazed, and we'll be spending almost $2 million this year on portable classrooms and reconfiguration and stuff. And that's, we got to do better. We got to do better for our kids, and we got to do better for the future of our communities. And this is a North Yarmouth issue as much as it is a Cumberland issue. So I urge you to kind of work together with the school, and hopefully tonight we can get the approval so they can get moving, because this has to happen day one. As soon as school gets out, it's a really tight window to get all this built. My staff will be working very closely on the inspections. Carla has done a great job on working with us and working with Scott's team on the review process so that the planning board has all their information tonight. And you know, as a grandparent, it just pains to watch it because it is way too crowded for little kids to be on this campus. And hopefully in the near future, that'll be rectified, and I will work very hard to hopefully make that happen in the near future. So thank you for your time and appreciate that.
Anybody else in the public wish to make any comments? If not, I'll close the public hearing. We've dealt with the waiver issue. So are we ready to move to the findings of fact?
Before we get there, because there's a note on the finding of fact about the dumpster, have you, has that been?
Pat, can you point out, I couldn't spot it on the site plan.
okay, well, I did, if we go back to the existing conditions plan. The dumpster is actually, this is the bus loop, and the cafeteria service is right here, and the dumpster is actually located right here. I think it's
So it's where it is currently.
where it is currently, it's
okay.
gonna stay there.
Right.
I did locate it on the existing conditions plan, as Carla had asked me to do. I did not include it, I didn't highlight it on the site plan. So if that's something that you really think is important, I'm more than glad to draw a box around it and call it a dumpster and resubmit it.
I'm fine with it.
Okay.
Just wanted to make sure it was there.
Yeah, it's in its current location. You know, it's on the service side of the building. It's away from the kids. It's out of view, and I think it's, you know, it's a good location, and we're going to keep it there.
Okay, is the board ready to move through the findings of facts?
So, question, does that remain then a condition of approval? as it states in the,
I don't think it needs to be.
No, we can
It's on the
take that
plan.
off when we get there.
because that's how it's stated currently.
Yes.
Okay.
So Lorraine, could you lead us through the findings of facts while I can do a quick exit?
Are you seriously leaving?
No, I'm going to be right back. It's an age thing.
It's an age. All right, he sprung that on me. He's like, you're going to do this tonight, so bear with me. Okay, starting with utilization of the site. The plan for the development, including buildings, lots, and support facilities, must reflect the natural capabilities of the site to support development. The proposed portable classroom building at Mabel I. Wilson and Greeley Middle School will be located on existing developed areas with direct access to building support services. The existing Tuttle Town Playground will be relocated to the outfield of the softball field, and the Mabel I. Wilson and enlarged along with the addition of a shade structure. The additional hard play area and pre-K play area are also being located on areas previously developed adjacent to support services and building access. The proposed concession stand will be located at the west end of the football field, adjacent to other associated buildings with similar needs, with direct access to the access way through the campus. Based on the above findings of fact, the Planning Board finds the standards of this section have been met. Traffic circulation and parking. There are no proposed changes to the existing site circulation, parking areas, or pedestrian ways. All ramps and stairs from the new modular units will connect to existing paved walkways and hard surface areas. Based on the above findings of fact, the Planning Board finds the standards of this section have been met. Stormwater management and erosion control. All existing drainage patterns will be maintained wherever possible. The temporary modular classroom buildings are installed on concrete piers and pads over existing grade, which allows existing drainage to move under them with no disturbance of existing patterns. 4-foot wide drip edges along each long side of the new and related portables will be installed. Erosion control measures, including silt fence and silt sack catch basin inlet devices, are proposed and detailed. The buildings will be placed over existing developed surfaces. Based on the above findings of fact, the Planning Board finds the standards of this section have been met. Water, sewer, and fire protection. Public water and sewer connections will be made to each of the modular classroom buildings. A new sewer service will be required for the concession stand. Underground power and communication service will connect all modular classroom buildings with the existing school buildings. Power will be connected to the concession stand. Is this statement still true?
Yes.
Yes.
A letter from the Portland Water District including capacity to serve is a proposed condition of approval. All portable classrooms will be fully accessible by emergency vehicles and personnel. A minimum 20-foot clear zone has been maintained between the buildings and the existing school. Sprinkler service connections are proposed to each of the modular classroom buildings. Based on the above findings of fact and the proposed condition of approval, the Planning Board finds the standards of this section have been met. Water protection. The modular classrooms are served by public water and sewer and will not impact any groundwater sources on adjacent properties. No hazardous materials are proposed to be used at this site. The site is not located within the town aquifer protection area. Based on the above finding of fact, the Planning Board finds that the standards of this section have been met. Floodplain management. The project is not located within a special flood hazard area as identified in the latest FEMA flood maps. Based on the above finding of fact, the Planning Board finds the standards of this section have been met. Historic and archaeological resources, There are letters on file from previous site plan applications stating that the Maine Historic Preservation Commission has not found there to be any historical or archaeological resources present on the site of the school campus. Based on the above finding of fact, the planning board finds the standards of this section have been met. Exterior lighting. No new exterior lighting is proposed other than that provided by lights at either ends of the portables. School uses are proposed to occur during daytime hours. The existing school buildings have several wall-mounted lights that provide security lighting for the hard surface play area and internal walkways. Based on the above finding of fact, the planning board finds the standards of this section have been met. Buffering and landscaping. The proposed project site is within the interior of the campus and is limited visually from abutting properties. Given their temporary nature, the installation of landscaping to buffer the portables is not feasible. Based on the above findings of fact, the planning board finds the standards of this section have been met. Noise. The portables will not generate noise that would affect neighboring properties. Based on the above findings of fact, the planning board finds the standards of this section have been met. Storage of materials. So we've dealt with this,
Strike
the
the
existing
first.
dumpster, so.
Yep.
Can I just say that based on the above findings of fact, the planning board finds the standards of this section have been met?
You certainly can.
Thank you. Capacity of the applicant. Technical. The applicant has retained an architect, landscape architect, civil engineer, and surveyor to assist in preparing the site plan. Financial capacity. The leasing of the portables will be paid for from the operating budget of the MSAD. Based on the above findings of fact, the planning board finds the standard of this section have been met. And then the design and performance standards, none of the above are applicable to the project.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Are we ready to approve the,
Make a
findings
motion
of
that
fact?
we adopt the findings of fact as amended.
Seconded.
second? Discussion? All in favor? Approved. Right now, it looks like we have three
Nope, one.
conditions.
We're going to one, right, Carla?
Down to two.
We're down to two.
One and
Down to
two.
one. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
We still need the Portland Water District. I keep looking at that. Okay, so we got two.
So are there any other conditions of approval needed?
No.
So are we ready for a motion?
I will make a motion that we approve amended site plan for MSAD 51 for the reconfiguration of portable classrooms at the Greeley Middle School, located on tax assessor map lot, on tax assessor map U11 lot 1, and for the Mabel I. Wilson campus at tax assessor map U11 lot 9, subject to the standard condition of approval, the limitation of approval, and the two proposed conditions of approval.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Second. Discussion? All in favor? Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Okay, moving on to item 5. Public hearing, 1-year extension of the site plan review approval for construction of a 10,280 square foot professional office building on condominium route Unit 3 at 2 Faraday Drive is shown on tax assessor map U-20, Lot 73 in the Village Center Commercial VCC zoning district. And the applicant is James Schmidt, and the owner is Grun Properties LLC. Carla?
Yes, Mr. Schmidt is here tonight, but I can summarize that there is a need for this extension. He's could have requested 2 one-year approvals. I believe he's asking for just one-year approval. The project ran into problems with acquiring necessary supplies during COVID and the labor shortages.
Mr. Schmidt, do you wish to address the thing? None? Questions from the board? Questions from the board? This I'll open the public hearing. If any members of the public wish to speak on this, hearing none, I'll close the public hearing and turn it back to the board.
I will make a motion that we approve a one-year extension of site plan approval for the construction of a 10,280 square foot professional office building on condominium at Unit 3 at 2 Faraday Drive, as shown on tax assessor map U20, lot 73.
Do I hear a second?
A second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? It's approved. Mr. Schmidt, good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, our next item, item 6, is public hearing, recommendation of the town council on readoption of the February 22, 2016 version of the Route 1 design standards as recommended by the town attorney. Carla?
I'm going to turn this right over to Bill Shane. He's going to walk you through the last couple of agenda items, which are all ordinance changes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Carla. We found, actually by Tim Nastro, that our online ordinances weren't updated up to par. Carla and Christina were using the correct standards for planning board meetings, but on the online version was the old standards for Route 1. When I reached out to Natalie Burns, our attorney, I asked what are the implications, and she said, because it's been since 2016 that your online ordinances weren't adopted, bring it back to the council, just have them re-adopt it, bring it back to the planning board, have them re-adopt it. It's the packet before you. It's the same rules and regulations you've been using and staff has been using, but the online version was the 2014 version, not the 2016 version. Tim was in my office and he started reading from the correct version. I'm going, where did you get that? So, because I was reading from the online version. So we're recommending just, the council is asking for your recommendation for the readoption, essentially, of the 2016 version. So that's the first one. The second one is about LD 2003, and I'll get into that in more detail.
Questions from the board? This is I will open the public hearing if there are any members of the public that wish to speak on this. Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing and turn it back to the board.
I will make a motion that we recommend to town council to readopt the February 22nd, 2016 Route 1 design standards.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? It's approved. Item number 7, public hearing, a recommendation of the town council on amendments to Chapter 315 zoning, Article 4, lot regulations, to add Section 33.1, effective demolition of dwelling units, and update lot densities 35-315-10, 315-11, 315-16, 315-17, 315-18, 315-20. These will clarify minimum lot area per dwelling unit and add 315-17E LDR to include design standards for multiplexes, and 315-14 definition for shed, and 315-45 section for conversions A, A3, A4B is recommended by the ordinance committee. Okay, Bill?
Yeah, you hit every one of them, and it's just a lot of cleanup work that Carla and Natalie has gone through in the ordinance to kind of line up with LD 2003, which will take effect on July 1st. The intent of the legislative action has been to increase affordable housing. We believe strongly that our ordinances are in really good shape. Primarily, I think we've had this discussion with the council and with the town attorney, and this is just truly housekeeping on many of the issues. I think the greatest one that we did clean up, however, was in the demolition ordinance, where you couldn't demolish a house and put a multiplex up. if you were demolishing a house to get that density bonus, that wasn't allowed. You'd have to put a single-family home back. So that was the one fear we had in our ordinance, and that was cleaned up as well. So I think we might have done that in a previous meeting too. So we might have done this twice on that one. But for me, I think the exercise that Jensen Baird did for us was very, very helpful. I think it gave us some confidence that our ordinances were prepared for what might be coming. The only wild card, Mr. Chairman, is the legislature. We just don't know what's going to come out of Augusta in the next few months related to this ordinance. If it's going to be delayed, if it's going to be pushed back, if it's going to be, some more things added to it. But this will clean up our ordinance regardless, and I think it's general housekeeping that doesn't hurt to implement it. It doesn't really do anything more to basically make our ordinances prohibitive in any way. I think it's more clarifying language than anything. So the council asks for your review and your opinion, and any recommendation or maybe some tweaking, it's definitely welcome.
Questions from board, Paul?
Yeah, two things, Bill. In 31510, the Island Residential District, item C2, previously it was in the case of duplex development, and that was all deleted. Now it's just the minimum lot area, so it's duplex doesn't have to be there?
No.
Okay.
No.
And the other question is on 315.7B, there are the following uses are allowed, and I'm just curious. One is home occupations, the other is home-based occupations. And there's probably a difference, but what's the difference?
One is items that are made essentially in the home, like if you had a knitting business that you were selling mittens or something like that and sending them out by UPS. I believe the other one is where you keep, you might have a storage shed where you might have a landscaping business, everything's in your garage out back, and you're basically leaving that site, you have minimal employees, and you're kind of heading out for the day.
Okay, thank you, I was curious, appreciate it.
Josh?
Carla, and a whole bunch of the section 315s, island residential, highway commercial, blah, 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 blah. Minimum lot areas per dwelling unit. I know that would be in violation of the new standards, except and unless what I think is revised down below, that an ADU is not a dwelling unit. Is that a correct statement?
An ADU is a dwelling unit, but it's got its own.
Well, my only concern is that these are not true if
Which one
ADUs are a dwelling unit.
Which one are you looking at?
All of those.
So if I'm
So
looking.
let's just start with island residential. The minimum lot area per dwelling unit shall be 0.94 acres. That's not true if you can have a dwelling unit and an ADU in that 0.94 acres. So
Okay.
if an ADU isn't, if there's somewhere that says the definition of a dwelling unit does not include an accessory dwelling unit, which in the arcane language of zoning, I would fully suspect, then I would agree that that language works. And I think that's because down below, it says things like, somewhere in here, where the accessory dwelling shall not be required to independently meet the lot frontage. I think there's things in here that says that they're basically not a dwelling unit. An accessory, so lot standards, where am I? Section 315.45, 4A. An accessory dwelling unit shall not be required to independently meet the minimum lot size requirements of the zoning district within which it is located.
I think I'm looking at the zoning ordinance definitions, and I think we're okay. And the reason is that the definition for an accessory dwelling unit is a secondary dwelling unit. And when we describe dwelling units, we list them. We have dwelling attached, dwelling detached, dwelling duplex, dwelling multiplex, and dwelling unit. And this is specifically described as a secondary dwelling unit. So I think we're okay. We have a whole section on ADUs. I don't think there's a need to differentiate it.
Okay. I mean, I think I'm okay. I wasn't okay with it, and then I kept reading, and I think I'm okay with it, but I wanted to raise
Yeah,
that because
I think we're fine.
If an accessory dwelling unit is a dwelling unit, then it is, we
Right.
are in direct violation. of-
Secondary dwelling unit.
so-
It's not
All right,
primary.
Now we're gonna have an accessory dwelling unit and a secondary dwelling unit?
And a primary.
Can I have
So-
both of those? Can I have,
Gonna
I
have
got
all
one
of them.
dwelling unit and then an accessory and a secondary.
I think what we're waiting for from the state, honestly, is the tiny house models that might be coming next. And that we don't really recognize yet in our ordinance. So the state has almost a standalone set of recommendations for that we'll have to look at in the future. But the accessory dwelling units, I mean, we've been well ahead of the state in this. I mean, we did this, I don't know, 5,
Years
6,
ago.
7 years ago. And that was always supposed to be, the mother-in-law apartment or the rental income or things like that. And we haven't had a lot of them. We had a report from Bill Longley, I think, at one meeting just to say he, barely gets very many of them, and primarily because the cost of construction is so much. So,
But Airbnb would be fine, right?
correct.
Yes.
We changed our rules, then we passed things that said the owner of record had to live in one, either
live
the
one
primary or
in
the
one
secondary,
together.
but didn't we, I think we might have struck those because they were in violation of
Correct, yeah.
something.
Didn't Freeport have to, they have quite a list of
Zoning changes.
conditions.
Yeah, we were in violation with that standard, as well as the parking standards, as well as some of those others that the state said you cannot do that. So we, those are the things that we had to basically strike
Right,
from our
already got rid
ordinance.
of.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the board? So, Bill, do we still don't, has Steve given us any kind of indication of what's going on, or does he?
It's a frenzy right now
Yeah.
because they've got so many bills to get through, and all the committee hearings are going on now, and the work sessions are like a week later, so it's like bang, 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 and he's up there every day, from dusk till dawn, it seems. I've met him up there a couple of times for testimonies, and it is just busy.
So basically, it's the Sergeant Schultz thing. We know nothing
At this point. At this point, we don't.
Okay.
I would say probably by June, and that's when we hope to bring these to the council for acceptance, because I don't want to basically have them accepted and then
Right.
taken out of the ordinance because for whatever reason. But a lot of this seems to me like housekeeping. I don't think there's anything wrong if we basically accept these because it seems more cleanup work than it does anything else to me. So
Okay.
I think they'd be okay standalone, so we're gonna move forward and hope that we don't get surprised. But I think if the state adds much more language, because there's a lot of bills in front of the legislature right now. One is to exempt all communities under 10,000 from this rule, which we would fall under. Another is to extend it out a year. So we don't know where all this is going to fall. Personally, I'd like to be done with this so we can move on and not have to always be looking over our shoulder. And I think our ordinances are in good shape because we do a lot of work on them throughout the year.
Any other questions from the board? If not, I'll look for a motion.
I make a motion that we recommend to the town council to approve the amendments to chapter 315 as presented and discussed tonight.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous? Is there any new business or administrative matters?
I'd just like to talk a little bit about the site walk. So I'm going to set that up as soon as I can in terms of when notice has to be given. I'll know that tomorrow. I'm thinking an evening, like a 5 o'clock, it's still light out.
Yeah.
Would that work for most of you, or 5:30? What would you like? And is there a day of the week that's,
Leave for the working people. Yeah, it's more convenient for you guys that are working.
Earlier was mentioned to do it before a meeting, is that?
well, but I don't want to wait right before our
Yeah.
next meeting, because then they don't have
No,
time.
and
Yeah.
that's just, I don't think an hour is gonna be,
Yeah.
we gotta leave.
It's a big site, if we're going to walk all the way around it.
It occurs to me, it'd be nice if we could do it when the weather's halfway decent,
When might that be?
which is gonna be this Friday. 2 weeks.
I think the weather reports are, we're in this
Yeah.
trend for a little bit longer.
I'm thinking it's going to be at least a
So why don't
couple
you
of
get a
weeks
couple
till
of
we can
dates?
get. Okay.
And see, because certainly the folks that are working, we want to accommodate them. So
Okay.
anything else? Any other?
Yes, one thing. These emails we get regarding fulfilling security hour-long sessions, are you familiar with that? It's
From our-
it's to
These
do
are
with
getting
From the
annoying.
town.
Yeah, we
from
get
the
them all the
town. They
time.
go on and on.
Yeah.
We're getting them.
Okay.
All right, stop, don't even ask another
Really?
question.
Okay.
Done. In the minutes, please.
But is that the training?
Yeah.
Is that
Training.
Like the
So
Oh.
repetitive.
Well, I'll stop doing them then.
As I said,
behind, but-
moving
But I was
on.
trying- Now I was kind of
I'm way
like, oh my
behind.
God, I'm like 5 classes behind.
We have our answer.
Okay,
Okay,
thank
looking
you.
like
for a
the answer.
looking for a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Don't
We're
forget we have
adjourned.
to- we have to
Gotta
sign.
sign.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, sign the plat. We're adjourned at 8:50.
Pretty good.
Not bad.
Right.